Grab your Walkman and get ready. Looks like we'll get a new awesome mix in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, courtesy of James Gunn. I'm Sasha Pearl Raver, and this is Screen Junkies News. Talking Guardians of the Galaxy, y'all. The first film made $333 million, and the sequel, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, is tracking to make $150 million when it hits theaters in a couple of weeks, and that is on the low end. A very large part of their success, obviously, is Star-Lord's sweet, sweet abs. But another part of that success is director James Gunn. There's been question of whether he'd be back to direct the third film, and today, thanks to Mr. Gunn's Facebook, we have an answer. Yes, he is doing the film. And here with me to talk about it is Victor Torres and Adam Hlavik. You guys, James Gunn! That's so exciting, right? Well, because I feel like he has made this such an auteur stamp. Mm-hmm. This isn't something where it's like, oh, somebody can come in and fill in. Like, James Gunn is as much at this franchise as Chris Pratt, as Zoe Saldana, as little baby Groot. It's all important, right?
Yeah.
But where do you think this lands, Adam?
I mean, he is the franchise. I think he's the reason why the Guardians of the Galaxy is so successful. He's the reason why partially why it probably got made, why it got a sequel. So I'm not surprised he's doing a third movie. I mean, I know in the Facebook post he talked about how he didn't want to make a third movie, and the third movie kind of being the one that you never speak of,
right?
Which has happened so many times with trilogies. But
I mean, there's even a joke about that in X-Men.
Totally,
like,
yeah.
They're like, oh, everybody knows the third one's the worst.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one of those things where, yes, I understand exactly where he's coming from. At the same time, if he's able to make these movies better and better every single time, I have a feeling that he loves this franchise, loves these characters enough that he can do that again.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's important to have a cohesive, singular voice through a trilogy. I mean, if he finished Volume 3 and we went in another direction with a new director, fine. But I think as far as this three-story arc goes, I think it's perfect that he's coming back for it. I was trying to like brainstorm different trilogies, like where they had one director, whether it's like the Evil Dead series or Lord of the Rings or Back to the Future. And I like that. I like that he'd be coming back to it, because then I think of other series that have had other directors come in, like Harry Potter. Like, I love the Harry Potter movies, but the Alfonso Cuarón, like, one just sticks out of all of them. As for as awesome as it is, it's like this thematically and design-wise is way different than what we've gotten so far. So I love it. I'm on board 100%.
If there were a director who would take on, let's say, a fourth, I mean, the only name that comes into my mind is Edgar Wright, because I feel like there's a similar sensibility there. But is there anybody else you could see besides James Gunn jumping into this?
I mean, we all know that Marvel and Lucasfilm like to crossover talent. Maybe Rian Johnson could be somebody that could come in and do a Guardians.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Oh man, I'm kind of stuck on Edgar Wright after you said that. I can't get out of
Edgar Wright would be great, but I don't know. I don't see him coming back to Marvel anytime soon.
No. That bridge is probably pretty burned.
It's done and burnt.
So in the post, we also talk about Gunn confirming that the third film is coming out after Infinity War. So let's speculate here. Where shall we find our Guardians, Victor? Where will they be?
Well, I think it would be interesting. So we know in Volume 2 that the
Marvel Star Wars.
We know by Volume 2, Star Wars and Star-Lord will be crossing over for a movie event. We know that he's met his dad.
That would be awesome.
Will have been to Earth after Infinity War, fought with Thanos. We know that basically the Guardians will be in Infinity War and play a key role. To what extent, we don't know yet. However, basically, where does it branch off from there? I like to always think of Star-Lord being similar to Captain America as far as a man out of his own time. He was abducted in 1988. He's missed almost 30 years of pop culture, music, movies, like huge events in history. I think it'd be kind of fun to see a movie with him that's just him catching up. Like, can you imagine if he saw like an iPod for the first time and he's like, what? Whoa. I can fit like volume 1 through volume 1,000,000 on an iPod. I think that'd be awesome.
I hope he does
really
it.
cool.
No, I want Star-Lord to kick it old school and keep those mixtapes going.
Yeah, he might be like that kind of pretentious.
No.
He's like, it sounds so compressed. I just can't do it.
Yeah. The original hipster.
Yeah. And a Rocket and Groot movie. I personally would love a Rocket and Groot, like on the road, like buddy cop movie.
Well, they've talked about that. They've talked about spin-offs. They've talked about standalones. Is that something you would like to see, Adam?
That's what I want to see. James Gunn talks endlessly about how much he loves Rocket Raccoon and Groot. And I think to make the Guardians franchise feel fresh, you can step away and do movies like that, where you can do a Rocket and Group team-up movie, then come back, do a bigger ensemble piece, and then kind of go off and maybe you want to explore Nebula and Gamora's relationship. I think you can do different things. They also mentioned that maybe this could be a change-up for the team. Maybe we may not see characters like Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax anymore. Rocket. I think Rocket and Groot are kind of the integral part of that, though.
Absolutely.
So I think those are two characters I would love to see continue on. If you want to rotate out characters, plus we don't know if all those Guardians will survive through Infinity War. We know Drax has some scores to settle with the good old Thanos. So that
You mean Cable?
What? Uh-oh.
I get it.
Crossovers.
Super nerd joke. Sorry. Well, there was
Everyone
also...
in the comments is like, what?
What do you mean? He's Cable. He's Thanos. So they've also talked about what the future of the MCU will mean and where this story will sort of land. And in the Facebook post, this is what James Gunn had to say. Number 3, it will conclude the story of this iteration of the Guardians of the Galaxy and help catapult both old and new Marvel characters into the next 10 years and beyond. I'll be working side by side with Kevin Feige and the gang to help design where these stories go and make sure the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is as special and authentic and magical as what we have created so far. I promise you, the fans, I'll do it all with integrity and love and respect for the characters. Oh, James Gunn, saying everything that we want to hear. Like, literally everything we want to hear. Why do you think he added that part in? Like, what do you think people are nervous about that he's trying to, like, allay the fears of, Adam?
This is a good question. I think the biggest fear for people, I think in general with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is where do you go after Infinity War? Infinity War is the biggest thing that franchise can do right now. You've got Thanos, this character from outer space, coming to Earth. You've got all these Avengers uniting together to defeat this villain. What do you do with Phase 4? What do you, like, how do you go bigger than that? Or do you go in the opposite direction? Do you go smaller? Do you focus more on character? Do you focus more on contained storytelling, which is why I think maybe going in the route of doing like Rocket and Groot could work better. But yeah, and I think a lot of people, again, are worried when it comes to a trilogy that the third movie tends to be the least well received. So I think he just reassuring fans and letting them know, like, I made this decision based on the fact that I know I can make this movie even better than the second, which that's a pretty tall task.
Especially because, I mean, I haven't seen the second yet. Have you guys?
No.
I can't
But
wait.
it's tracking to do amazing numbers, but also it was extremely well reviewed.
Absolutely.
So
The
far.
Rotten Tomatoes score is, I think, like, what is it, 93, something like that? We'll get a fact check.
Yeah.
But Victor, you seem to be like, yes, stand alone,
Okay,
stand alone.
well, I mean, I think just as far as specifically the future of Marvel, the next 10 years, I think having Volume 3 being the jumping off point into Phase 4 and on does make sense, because to me, it really speaks to the fact that Guardians was something that everyone loved and didn't really know they were going to love.
Totally.
It's my favorite Marvel film, and I think also when you have a movie that came out in 2014 and was able to do what basically took the Avengers 4 years to do, build up each of these characters individually to culminate in 2012's Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy did that in one movie, and it's my favorite. And so I think it totally makes sense that they're kind of being brought to the forefront for the future. Not to mention also how many different characters have been Guardians in the comic book history. Now, if we're talking about Phase 4, Fantastic Four, if they acquired the rights to Fantastic Four...
I feel like you say those words, and I'm just like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for love again. It was a very bad breakup. I'm still a little bit burned.
I was just referencing. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it on the table. Just know the thing was a Guardian.
So you're saying Phase 4, Phase Fantastic Four.
I'm just saying the future is open and hopefully bright for Marvel, and I think that the Guardians is a great way to kind of kick it off and to expand it, just because it's not only a great film and hopefully will be a great trilogy, but I think there have been so many great characters who have been a part of the team who can kind of come and go as we progress.
So we did get a fact check, and it is not 93%, it is 91% right now on Rotten Tomatoes, Volume 1. Volume 2, hopefully we'll be right about there. As you talk about like falling in love with these characters, and as we talk about standalones, and as we talk about Infinity War, where everybody's contract's up, so everyone's gonna die, is there a way to create a universe where we don't need as much backstory. Like, we've already got the comic history. Do we need the cinematic history in the same way? Like, when you say Fantastic Four and I immediately cringe, are there other offshoots that we can start exploring? Like, I'm very excited for Black Panther. I'm very excited to see where we can go from here. That's why I think Guardians was such an amazing and unexpected surprise, was it didn't have the emotional cinematic baggage of like a Superman, Batman, or like those are films and shows that we know so well. What is the next unexpected hero that we could get out of the MCU?
Oh, man.
Good question.
That is a great question, yeah.
Like, give me my next Guardians.
Oh my God.
Give you your next Guardians.
Well, I mean, I think to your point though, if 20th Century Fox does decide to work with Marvel Studios, whether it's with, I don't think it'll be X-Men, but if it is Fantastic Four, that could definitely be it. Because we see what they're doing with Spider-Man and Spider-Man Homecoming, and how so many people seem to be really on board with how they're kind of reinventing that story, and we're not getting the in-depth history of that character. We're kind of just going to a part of his life where he's already Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think with Fantastic Four, you totally could do that. And I think Marvel Studios could do an amazing job with that property.
And I'm not saying necessarily too that like all of the studios converging and like everything being under Marvel is like the greatest idea in the world.
Because that's bland and boring at some point.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I think that becomes a little over-manufactured, but it would be really cool. Like if Sony was like, here, you can have Agent Venom for your Guardians.
If Fox doesn't know what to do with those characters, why not?
Yeah.
Throw them in. Well, we want to know, are you excited to see James Gunn back for Volume 3? And if there is an unexpected new storyline, where would you like to see them take it? Let us know in the comments below. You can tweet us at SJ News. Make sure to like and subscribe. Of course, you can always click here for more Screen Junkies news. I'll see you soon.